Hello, friends, and welcome to the Powerful Podcast. I'm your host, AJ McCord. In this podcast, we introduce you to powerful women who are changing the game in and outside of their field of play. These are women's stories, women who happen to be doing things that many of us can only dream of, but the lessons and inspiration they share is universal. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Powerful Podcast. This is a best of episode with Biathlete Deedra Irwin. Right now, Team USA is fighting for their first ever medal in biathlon, and Deedra is carrying so many of the hopes of the Americans for a medal in Milan-Cortina. In this episode, Deedra explains how she went from the Army to biathlete, and also some of the things that she's working so hard at to make it better than the way she found it. I hope you enjoy this episode. It's all about making sure that you find your fight and stick with it. Welcome to the Powerful Podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to share my story.
Well, I want to start at the beginning because biathlon is not, I know you're from Wisconsin, but unless I have I still don't think biathlon is necessarily the first sport that kiddos get into growing up in Wisconsin. How did you find this very unique winter sport?
So I actually didn't find biathlon specifically until I was 25 years old. But Nordic skiing fell into my lap at around 16 years old when I was in high school. I was very athletic, but during the winter, I didn't really like running on snow. So I was like a swimmer, basketball player, like pretty casual stuff. But when I got to track season, I noticed I was never in the shape I wanted to be in. And so I had a couple teammates that were like, oh, we Nordic ski, come with us. And I like idolized them. I thought they were the coolest kids ever. So of course I was like, yeah, I'll come with you. And so those two athletes were like my inspiration. I wanted to follow them around, and Nordic skiing it was so difficult. It was so different than anything I'd ever done. And I fell in love with it. I mean, it was one of the first sports my mom said actually tired me out. I came home from training one day and I was like, oh, I'm just going to do my homework and go to bed. And she was like, hold up. What? Like,
wait a
minute.
You're
going to stick with this because we can actually like control your energy levels now. So for me, it kind of it was an extension of running for so long of like, how do I stay in shape over the winter so that I can be a competitive runner? Because that's what I'd always wanted to be. I always wanted to, I looked up to like 800-meter track and field athletes. That's what I wanted to do. I was glued to my TV this summer watching the Summer Olympics. I'm such a fan. So that was kind of my, I just kind of like happened to become a skier because I wanted to become a better runner.
But it didn't mean that you innately took up with the sport, right? Tell us about the nickname that your coaches and your teammates gave you, which I was cackling when I read this in a few articles. So tell us about the nickname that you got given when you first started Nordic skiing.
Yeah, so like Nordic skiing is such a unique sport. Like it has unique gear. So like you need the skis, you need the poles, you need the sweatpants and the jackets that repel water. I didn't own any of that. So I was wearing just like a normal like cotton sweatshirt and cotton sweatpants. So like when I fell into a snowbank, I was just covered in snow head to toe. And so they nicknamed me Powdered Donut, which like in hindsight is so funny because like years later, my obsession with donuts has just like grown. And now I'm known for like on my Instagram, like I say I'll compete for beer and donuts. And I have this whole fan club when I go to a certain location in Germany that like bring me donut things. They bring me donuts.
You're kidding.
And they bring me this year. No, let me grab it quick. This year they got me this amazing little donut plushie. So like right here.
Oh my gosh, stop. No big
and
deal.
So like donuts has just been
it was the
no
precursor.
It's just my
we had no
plushie.
idea. Does the donut plushie have a name?
Not yet. I was thinking about naming it beer, but it kind of it doesn't know if it fits yet,
Yeah, we gotta suss it out. Although the beer and donuts combo, I am interested in how that goes down after a biathlon because I want you to get into now. So you do Nordic skiing, you love the Summer Olympics, and it was 2008 in Beijing, right? That you were really like, whoa, I want to be an Olympian. And then a lot of injuries happen in running. And so somehow you end up going to a biathlon sort of scouting camp, if you will, which they have for some Olympic sports so that they can sort of engage the community that might be good at this sport but has never gotten a chance to try it. What went down at that biathlon scouting camp?
Yeah, so through college, I did all three sports. And then after college, I specifically focused on skiing. I moved out and did like professional skiing for a couple years. And I was thinking about retiring. I don't know how many times I'd thought about retiring, even, from running, whatever. But finally, in like 2017, leading to the 2018 Olympics, I was like, I don't think I'm good enough to make the Olympics. So, like, I got to start moving on with life. And my like best friend now, we had met at a Nordic competition and she had switched to biathlon. So Joanne Reed, she was like, well, why don't you just try it? Like, there's this talent ID camp that US Biathlon does. And, like, maybe you're good, maybe you're not, whatever. And so for me, I was like, well, I was already going to spend like a year trying to figure out what to do after Nordic. So why not spend it doing biathlon, and I'll still retire after this year? Like, well, I didn't retire. I went to the camp. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever experienced. And I definitely shot some rifles in the past, and I'd been introduced to biathlon, I think maybe in like 2010 at like a really small like junior national event where we just happened to be by a range, and like they were just sort of like, come try it. And so I shot like 5 shots, and like that was my experience until 2017. And so I fell in love with it. The organization I thought was so passionate. They really were just like, yeah, we want to recruit people like you. We want to like figure out if you can do the shooting part and if you can, make some waves in our sport. And for me, I was just, yeah, this is awesome. I fell in love with it immediately. So I packed up all my stuff and moved from Idaho to New York and just like moved into the Olympic Training Center. And yeah, just gave it a shot. And I think it must have been within like 3 or 4 months, I was already racing internationally with US Biathlon. And not like I was racing well, I still like missed 50% of my shots sometimes, but then there was those few times that I hit 80% of my shots. And I was like, it's addicting. It is so addicting to go from like missing to all of a sudden, like you're hitting a little bit more, you're getting a little bit closer to that top 20. And so, yeah, I fell in love with the sport, and from 2017 on, it's just been all biathlon for me.
So explain to me now how, because Joanne Reed's an important part of this story, because we'll come back to her impact on the organization as a whole in a little bit. But how do you go from sort of just picking up a rifle for one of the first times? Like, what is the process to become better at a brand new sport for somebody who is very competitive?
Yeah, I mean, that is there's definitely a part of you have to have like the natural ability, and I think a lot of women have a lot of natural ability to shoot. Like we're very good at shooting. Most women I've met, like when they come to try it, like compared to their husbands or whoever they bring their kids, the women can shoot a lot better. And I think it's just like we have a little bit more patience. We're not like pew pew pew. So I think for me it came a little naturally, like that part. But also the coaches I had at the time just really like, they gave me some very achievable goals when it came to shooting. And then they gave me the instruction of how to achieve those goals. And so we do a lot of what we call like simulation dry firing. And so that's something that you don't do on the range. You do it in like an empty room at the Olympic Training Center where you're just learning how to just take the rifle off quickly and get into position, and then put the rifle back on quickly. Because that can, like, being able to do that in 5 seconds versus being able to do that in 15 seconds is 20 places in a race.
Yeah.
So I had really amazing instruction when I was starting biathlon of like, this is how long we want you to like be on the mat. Like you have 30 seconds to get on the mat, take your 5 shots and get off the mat. And so for me, I was like, I'm competitive. You give me a goal, I'm going to try to achieve it. And like, I wasn't able to get it all the time, but I had this, I know what I need to achieve in order to like get to that level.
So you found this new sport in 2017, and then a short 5 years later, you were in Beijing, the exact same spot that you were watching the Olympics in 2008, except you're competing as a winter athlete. When did it sink in for you? Oh my gosh. I did it. This is like a full circle moment.
I think for me, it was definitely the opening ceremonies. Like being able to, we first got there, and of course, it was a weird year. It was
Yeah.
COVID, like a lot of weird stuff going on. So I've never actually experienced a real Olympics, but for me, like when we were able to all dress up in the opening ceremony uniform, we rode the bullet train to Beijing because we were like 3 hours from Beijing. And then doing the whole like walking up, meeting all the other Team USA athletes. And then for me, just like seeing the nest, because it's like I had all these memories of like seeing videos of it when I was watching the 2008 Olympics and how epic it looked and all the fireworks and the lights. And they had this, I still remember the beautiful like show that they put on. It was amazing. And so for me, it was like walking up to the nest and like going through all those corridors. And then I have this video of me just like walking through because you're like, you don't really see too much. It's like a stadium, it's normal. And then all of a sudden it just opens up and like there's the Olympic rings like elevated from I don't even know the sky. I don't even know how they got it up there. Like, and they're just so bright and beautiful. And it was just, I was like bawling. I was like, oh, I finally made it. Like I'm an Olympian. And so like for me, that definitely was like, that solidified. Like I was like, I am here. But definitely I had like my second moment, my mini moment, because like obviously you can't freak out too much on race day, was my first race, which was the 15K, where like I'm putting on the bib and has the rings on it, and I'm just like, all right, this is the moment. Like once I like cross that wand and that wand goes and the beeps and the and like I'm an Olympian. I've done in a race, And so for me, that was like a huge moment. I was like holding back tears on the start line, just being like, okay, just focus. This is no different than anything else. Like, you're okay. Having like a
just a
major
different
freak out.
uniform. Yeah.
Totally. And then it's just like, okay. And then of course, like game mode, you cross that start line and you're like in it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I distinctly remember having those like two moments of, yeah, like, oh, okay, I can cry. I'm at the opening ceremony. And then like at the start line being like, I can't cry here.
Break down for us, those of us who don't know as much about biathlon and like the process of competing, right? You got seventh in the 15-kilometer individual race, but how does it like, you ski, you shoot, you ski, you shoot. Walk us through the basics of biathlon.
So the simplest race that we actually have is called a sprint. For the women, it's 7.5K. For the men, it's like 9.9 or 10K or something. And we have one prone shooting stage and one standing shooting stage. And if you miss any targets, you have to ski a penalty loop. And so, say you start a race, you shoot prone, you hit all your targets, you're like, yay. You ski another loop, you shoot standing, and you miss two. Well, before you ski your next loop, you have to go around this tiny little penalty loop. It's about 150 meters, 2 times. And then you can go back out and ski and finish the race. And so, there's definitely, it adds fatigue. It's mentally draining to do it. And so that's probably the simplest race that we do. So the individual, which is the one that I have kind of weirdly become an expert at least world championship events. That race, so it's 15 kilometers. We don't have any penalty loops, and we shoot 4 times, 2 times prone and 2 times standing. And we actually alternate. We do a prone, then a standing, then a prone, then a standing. No spares, nothing. If you miss a shot, you get 1 minute added to your time.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like you can't even really make that back unless you're one of the fastest skiers in the world in our sport, which there are a couple who I've seen like win with like 2 misses. But that particular race is so focused on shooting that you really have to dial it in and hope that you hit everything. Because if you miss 5 shots, it's really hard to ski back 5 minutes on a 15K. So that's like the one that I did well at the Olympics and the one that I've done well at the last couple of world championships that I've been to. But yeah, we have a couple other, like we have a pursuit, which only the top 60 from a sprint get to do. We have a mass start, which only the top 30 in the world get to do. And then we also have relays, which those ones are like super fun. They're pretty much everybody does a mini sprint and you hand off and you just hope that your team can keep up, and you have spare rounds for that one. So that one people will shoot crazy fast because they know they have 3 extra spares, and that one's super fun to watch. So yeah, so we have a lot of different, we actually have, I think, 6 events at the Olympics.
I want to talk now about the other things that you guys have been trying to do to impact the sport and change it for the better within the US. So give us an overarching sort of summary, if you can, of what Joanne Reed came forward with and how biathlon culture has needed a bit of a shift, a massive shift over the last 30 years.
Yeah, so me and Joanne overlapped for how many years? I don't know, but before the 2022 Olympics, both of us actually were struggling a ton with communicating with staff and the culture on the team and kind of how we were being treated as female biathletes. And I hit a breaking point, and I'm in the military, and I went to my, command office and was just like, we're getting harassed, and it's I don't want to be there. And it's one of those things where it's like leading up to the Olympics, and you want to be there, you want to be on the team, you want to be traveling on the World Cup. But for me, I definitely was like, I don't, it was so hard to like be excited and want to be there when you're having to also navigate just these like cultural issues. And so me and Joanne actually both came forward with our safe sport investigations in that year. And that was also just like a very mentally struggling, difficult process. Safe sport was so new at that time still. I don't even know when they started, but they still were so new. And like, I think they were getting so many cases all the time from who knows how long ago. And so navigating that was really difficult through the Olympics. And once everything came out, it was kind of like swept under the rug, it felt like, for us. And luckily, the Associated Press kind of heard our story and saw Joanne's, story, and they were able to help her share it. And I think that's the biggest thing, is like, even with these other women coming forward, because now we have like 3 decades, 30 years worth of women who felt like they were pushed off the team or cheated out of positions because they tried to stand up for themselves, or they pushed back a little bit, and in such a male dominated field, which is our coaching, our staff, and everything. And so I think the Associated Press has done a really amazing job of helping those women feel comfortable enough to come forward and kind of face their demons a little bit. And I'm so proud of all of those women who've been able to say something, because it took me a very long time just to even post my response on Instagram to the article, because a lot of it I asked, because I'm still in US Biathlon, I asked to kind of be left out of it, because I was like, I'm still in this environment, which is way better. After mine and Joanne's experience, I think US Biathlon did a lot of self-reflection, and the athletes demanded more from the organization, and we're still demanding more from the organization of, how do we make sure we feel comfortable? How do we make sure that this never happens again? Or if it happens, it doesn't feel like you're being attacked. It doesn't feel like you're doing something wrong by telling someone how you feel. And I think they've done a lot of really good stuff in the past couple of years. I've never felt more comfortable and safe with the staff that I have now the past couple of years. And I know the articles are also shocking, and they make people feel, which is what they should do. They should make people want to, grab their pitchforks and demand answers. And I think that it's really important for people to continue to share and communicate. And if anything, that's one thing I'm really proud of Joanne. I'm really proud of myself for coming forward and starting the communication, instead of just sitting there in silence and hoping that it just gets better on its own, which, something that I've definitely learned in this whole process is that, like, you kind of got to like make some waves if you want to make change. And it's a very hard thing to do. I won't say it was like easy, and I don't even know how many like, hotel cry sessions I've had, throughout the years of just like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself in this position? But definitely, like, I feel supported. I feel motivated. Like you said, like we're so pumped to try and like get that medal next year here. And our staff is so pumped to support us as athletes. And I think the biggest thing that's come out of all of the just disturbing, terrible, I don't even know all the proper adjectives I could use for it, stories that have come out. I feel so much for those women. And the biggest thing is that like we can keep communicating and we can keep changing this organization for the better, because it needed to happen. Like the talks needed to happen. Same thing with ice skating, or not ice skating, sorry, gymnastics. Well, I guess there was ice skating stuff too.
Yeah.
But the same stuff with that. I mean, it's just the more we talk about what makes us actually uncomfortable and where our boundaries are, and how our staff and our athletes and our high performance directors and our board can all listen and communicate better, like the better the atmosphere is going to be. And so it's definitely been like, it's been hard. Like you've seen Joanne go through it. And I know, you know, she loves biathlon. She loved all of her time on, you know, competing and everything like that. And, you know, maybe I can convince her to come back. You know,
there we go. Another mission for 26.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, she still has that drive in her for sure. And I think, you know, I think allowing everybody to navigate through it in their own way. For me, I kind of like, you know, I'm competitive. I just get angry and I race a little faster, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the team we have now, they're so motivated to do the right thing and to be the right way that I think, it's only been positive in the past couple years. And I think any organization still always is going to have to improve.
Yeah.
There's never going to be a stopping point of improvement, especially when it comes to, you know, harassment or abuse or like the understanding of other people in the room.
Yeah, well, so to sort of go back and maybe give a little bit more context to exactly what was detailed in the AP report, but there was a lot of sort of power dynamics at play between the abuse, right? It was between coaches and athletes, and then reporting to higher ups and not really having anything done, and the US being incredibly motivated to get this elusive medal in biathlon, so that they're bringing in coaches and execs and things from other countries, other cultures, and wanting to keep those people that they brought in to try and win this medal happy, and sort of have everything else get swept under the rug at the expense of the female athletes who experienced it. And one of the things that stood out to me in the AP report was also that the male biathletes came out and said, yeah, there is a culture of misogyny. There is a difference between how we're treated and how the women are treated. And it's one thing, I mean, Joanne, what Joanne went through is hard to fathom, I think, because, you know, I was a gymnast, so the USA Gymnastics scandal really hit home for me, because you understand so, like, all too well how it's possible, because you're out traveling, you're trying to make it in a sport. And in gymnastics, we were so young. Those girls are so young. You haven't experienced the world yet. And even if you have, you know, the power dynamics, this is your dream, to be an Olympian, to be on this team. How do you manage that when it's the coach that's abusing you, when it's the executives who aren't listening to you? What do you do? Some women choose to walk away from the sport, and some choose to sort of suffer through it in order to try and change it. And neither is there's no right or wrong. There's just, like you said, different managing styles of it. And you said you had so many hotel cries, so many questions of, why am I doing this? What is the answer? Why did you do this? Why did you choose this path to come out, to talk about the harassment, to talk about the abuse that was happening, all while pursuing your own dream and staying within the program? Why was this the route that you chose?
I think for me, especially, like, I didn't start traveling with US Biathlon until after I'd gone through basic military training. So like, and the military has also gone through this, like, we all know it. And they have a really great program that they call SHARP. It's similar to Safe Sport in a way of like how to report and everything in the military. And I think for me, it's like I'd learned all this stuff, and I was almost ashamed that I let it happen to me. And so then when I kind of like was able to find my voice, and I think there was, me and Joanne have our support systems, and I was texting someone back home, or somebody had replied to one of our texts at some point and just been like, my daughter wants to be a biathlete. And I like, sorry. Like,
Yeah.
like, will you guys be there to protect her?
Oh.
And I was just like, nope, I'm done. I have to say something, because I cannot let the next person come onto this team and experience what I experienced, because it's not fair to them. It's not fair because it's not right. This is not part of the dream. This is not part of the dream. And I think for me, it was, my introduction, I think I maybe said it in one of the articles to the team, was like, oh yeah, that wax tech, like, yeah, he might slap your ass or something, but like, he's a good dude. And I'm like, that's not okay. And so like, I've been really proud of the fact that since all this has come through, I don't, like, when a new athlete comes onto the World Cup, I'm not telling them which wax techs or which staff members or whoever to avoid, even from other teams. I'm able to just be like, welcome, this is the course, this is the range, what do you need? Like, like, what advice can I give you? Like, if that's what you need. And I think that for me was, hearing that from a parent of a young female athlete who wanted to be where me and Joanne were, asking them, like, it hit me so hard. And it's still like, it's hard to like think about the fact that, when parents read what has happened in US Biathlon, like, will they allow their daughters to compete? And that's such a hard thing for me, because I like love inspiring the next generation of female biathletes, or skiers or runners or whoever. I want to inspire young females to chase their dreams and be in sport. But how do I also inspire them to like protect themselves? Because as we've seen, it happens in so many sports. It happens in so many areas of life, and you want them to like keep pushing and striving to be great. And what if something like this happens to them? And so for me, that was my biggest, I guess, like anger, sad, everything all at once moment of like, all right, I'm gonna burn it down if I have to, and like Joanne was the same. I mean, and we have a whole army behind us, and I'm so glad that more people have been able to come forward and express their concerns, because even there's female technical delegates in biathlon who have been passed up by males in the past, and they're always just like, why? Why? We've had female staff members that have only made it like 1 year traveling here. Why don't they continue to travel with us? Like, there's all the lifestyle issues, but also like, there's only so much disrespect we can handle to a certain point. And I think for me, that was like the biggest moment of like, we gotta do something. And even if it destroys my career, or if it destroys Joanne's career, like, we have to start the conversation of how we're going to do better for the 12-year-old biathlete who is just like, wants to be in our position, wants to go to the Soldier Hollow, Salt Lake City Olympics in 2034. Like, how do we make it better for them so that they can come onto this team and just perform and not have to worry about anything else?
Because that's the hardest part, right? Is like, and it's so universal, right? Whether it's an older sibling, whether it's an athlete trying to inspire the next generation, there's an element of, I don't know, responsibility that you feel of like, yeah, I want to inspire you to do this, but I also don't want this for you. I don't want you to have to experience what I've gone through. And my God, the burden that you and Joanne carried so that the next generation has it better. And all doing this while you are working so hard and getting that 7th place finish in 2022. What was I don't know, where did the strength come from to just keep fighting that fight and keep fighting the fight while also working at the racing, while also having a support system and a life? You just got engaged. I mean, there's so many things that come with life, and yet this one thing could have been all encompassing, and yet you're a whole human. How did you manage all of it for people who are going through the hard thing, who are saying the hard thing? What's sort of the lesson or the strategy that helped you?
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I think definitely like if I wouldn't have had Joe, it would have been a totally different story. Like I probably would have been quiet, probably still wouldn't have said anything. We might still have some of those people, and I think we were really able to support each other and build each other up. And when it was all happening, I mean, we still pretty much communicate daily, just like checking in on each other. And, while it's happening, it's just like, all right, how you today? Like how many breakdowns did you have, or, whatever. And like, I think just having that person, like you said, who understands and who has been there, who, is going to love you through it, whether you quit the sport or whether you keep doing it. Like, she's continued to support me while I continue racing, and I continue to support her while she's decided to take a step back. And so I think just having her as a support system has been really amazing. And then for me too, I think like the military really, in those moments that I didn't feel like I was strong enough to talk to Biathlon, to talk to US Biathlon, they were able to speak for me. So there were a lot of people who I would go to them and be like, I want to have this conversation, but I can't. Like I can't get through it. And so they gave me, they gave me an amazing advocate to help me communicate. And, they were really behind me the entire time. They really supported me. And Joanne, I mean, they pretty much adopted her, like without her joining the military, Yeah. And so I think for me, definitely like the Vermont National Guard really did an amazing job of just making sure that like I felt supported, and that no matter what happened, if I decided that I needed to take a step away from biathlon, or just step away from US Biathlon and just train by myself, that they were there and they were willing to support me in whatever had happened. And so I think it really just came down to like just my support crew. When I told my parents what had happened, my mom was the first one to like pick up a pitchfork. She wanted to go burn the whole place down. And I think also that I was raised very strong. My mother's a very strong woman. So I think there's definitely some of her personality in me too, of like, what? You made it hard for me, I'm going to make it hard for you.
Yeah. You haven't seen hard yet.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. So I think there's just so many people behind the scenes who have definitely helped me, who I know have helped Joanne, who have just been there to tell us that like, you're doing the right thing, even though it's really hard, even though it feels impossible right now, even though there's so many other things going on. Like this is such a small part that you can play to make so much change. And I think that was a really big thing that helped me at least through it in those moments. And that still helped me through it. I mean, there's times where, those articles get released and I just break down, and it's just a huge, gut punch, and it just brings back so many emotions. And, I think just the therapy team that I have now, and like the support team that I had back then, that's still there. I mean, it really just takes a village to make a change. It takes an army to support those couple of warriors that are still on the front line.
Sometimes a literal army.
We have a literal army. And I think, it just, the more people who can support and can also tell their stories. I mean, I did not know what was coming out in that last article, and it broke my heart. And it also like, made me feel like I wasn't alone, almost in like a good way, but also in a bad way.
Right. Cause you're so like, I don't want this for anybody, but I'm also not I think it's so easy in these scenarios. I know from what I have experienced in my life, it's so easy to feel like, I'm alone. And if I come out, then no one's going to, you don't know what the reaction's going to be. Am I going to get blamed? Am I going to get told that I did something wrong? Am I going to get asked what I was wearing or what I did to encourage it? And then there's also this
Was it
element
my
of like
fault?
yeah. And then the more you believe you're alone, the more you're also like, wait a minute, did it happen the way I think like you almost gaslight yourself the longer you sit with it, because you're like, there's no way, right? Like there's no way this could happen. But I think it's so powerful what you and Joanne have done. And we've seen it with ice skating. We've seen it with Simone Biles and Allie Raceman and all of the gymnasts who came out with USAG, how much power there is when we look at each other and we say, A, you're not alone. B, this did happen the way you think it is, and it did. And C, it is not okay. And we are going to stand up together. What kind of power has this team and your teammates and your support group found because of this terrible trauma and circumstances that you guys have had to navigate together?
I think, like I said, it's just brought to light a lot of like the systemic issues in our organization, the unknown power dynamic that people didn't realize, that like we were so reliant on someone as simple as the person who tests our skis. So reliant on them, and like it's one of those things where you definitely are like, well, I don't want to make this person mad, so that they continue to like get me good skis or like test my skis properly. And I think just having that all come to light, even the power dynamic between staff and athlete and female athlete. But I think a lot of the men, like you said, like a lot of them didn't experience it the same way, but they saw it. But there was also like we now have better communication with our WAC staff about how we feel about skis. We can't just tell them like, oh, we think we had bad skis, and then they'd respond to us. We're like, oh, well, we just think you were slow today, where it's like, oh, well, actually, no, the whole team thought we had bad skis, So it's like, I think the fact that all of this came out, just more communication, more challenging that dynamic of like, do we work for you? Do you work for us? No, we're all working together for this common goal. Yeah. Our roles are just a little different. We're the athletes that push our bodies a ton. You are the science magic experiment people behind the magic wax that goes on our skis, and like you got the marketing staff that are trying to make sure that we get all the support that we have. You have like the social media staff that literally just follows around with a camera all day and, tries to make us look good. And so I think that whole understanding that came out of this was that like we're all on the same field and we're all working towards the same goal. There shouldn't be a dynamic where people feel uncomfortable, where they don't feel heard, where they feel less than someone else. And I think that is something that I've, besides like obviously throw at all the sexual harassment and abuse, there's also just that level of respect, I think, that has definitely increased on our team. And then I see it in other sports too. I think the more people challenge criteria, they challenge decisions, they challenge, what's going on, the more success we have when we work together, instead of it just being a couple people running the show and a bunch of little people being the puppets.
Yeah. How do you feel like, well, I guess, first of all, and I should have said it much louder and much earlier in this part of the conversation, but I'm so proud of you. I'm so grateful for what you guys are doing, because I think for us as fans of the Olympics, right, there's sometimes that we're like, hey, we want you to do your best. Of course, we'd like you to bring home a medal, but I think it's so much more impressive what you have done behind the scenes to change the culture than it ever could be to bring home a medal. This is going to be a much longer lasting change than any result that you can have in 2026, in 2030. Like this is so much beyond an Olympic medal. And so as an Olympic fan, as somebody who competed in a sport that had its own, my gym was really not all that different than the ones that, USAG had. it means the world to see you guys stand up for what you know is right, to protect yourself, and to stand up for that next generation. You have impacted more people than you will ever know.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And then the last question is, this is the Powerful Podcast, and we are all about celebrating powerful women in the extreme Olympic and outdoor sports and what they do day in and day out in between the medal ceremonies and in between the races that are nationally and internationally televised. So, Deedra, I want to know, what does powerful mean to you?
Grit, perseverance, strength. I think, grit is a word that's been hitting home with me a lot lately, because it can encompass so many things, whether you're already having a good day and you can push a little more, or whether you're having a bad day and you can push through it. I think having that ability to just dig deep in whatever you're doing and just power through the day.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Powerful Podcast. It has been an honor to talk to you. I cannot wait to watch you this World Cup season and on into 2026. But yeah, you got a fan in me, girl. So thank you for being on here.
Thank you so much. It was so fun. And, invite me back whenever you want.
Done deal. Done deal. Thank you so much, Powerful Pod Squad. We will see you next week. Season 4 of the Powerful Podcast is getting you ready for the Winter Games in Milan-Cortina. So look for new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoy this and don't want to miss an episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button.